Welcome back to my channel, fellow gardeners. Today I want to talk about the blue spur, and about a few years ago I was given the plant and I didn't know anything about the blue spur, so I planted it at the end of my driveway and suddenly it produced these lovely flowers like this, and so I fell in love. And it's got these lovely leaves. Now the other name for it is known as the candlestick plant, or even better, the toilet paper plant, and I will explain why. But what we're doing today is learning how to propagate it. We're going to do a water propagation, which I've already done, and we're going to show you how to do soil propagation. My name is Alice and I'm the Red Soil Gardener. So, fellow gardeners, now this is the most interesting plant. As I said, I'd been given and I'd planted it at the bottom of my driveway, but I didn't realize what beautiful flowers that spike out because it is a spur. The thing about it, it's fast growing, and it also it does have these enormous leaves. Look at these leaves, and it is very functional too. Now, the thing about it, what sort of light requirement would you need? It does actually, for as long as you give it about 4 to 6 hours of light, sunshine, it's good to go. And what sort of soil does it like? Well, it does like a well-draining soil, but it's not fussy about soil. The only thing is that it does have it well-draining, and also what it does particularly like in the soil is a bit of moisture. So what I would recommend is every 2 years also, just go around the pot, around your plant, whether it's planted in your garden or in a pot, just add a bit of compost in there, so at least in a way the water can drain. Now the other thing about this plant is that you can actually have this blue spur plant in the house for as long as you put it somewhere where it's warm, facing a window, not direct sun, because basically the leaves are very delicate, but somewhere where you can get indirect sun or filtered light, it will do well in a pot. Now the thing is, with water, what do we do with it? Now the thing is that about this plant, it is quite indigenous in this area, I mean in Africa, and basically it is drought resistant, but because it's so fast growing, and it does grow up to, like the one I have at the bottom of the driveway, is almost about 6 to 8 feet tall. But basically drought resistant, for as long as it gets water now and then, it's fine. I've never really gone down there to water the plant, but it just relies on the season. So during the rainy season, it looks okay. During the warm season, I suppose the roots are quite deep. If you do grow this plant in a cold climate, and you do have it outside, because it has these lovely flowers, is that you have it outside. In winter, over winter, do bring it in. It's not very frost tolerant, and it doesn't really do well in cold climates where the winters are really strong. But if you are in a slightly warmer location, but you do have frost and you do have winter, you could actually just cut it down and it'll spring up in summer. But for those who live in places that the temperatures really drop in winter, I would actually bring the plant in and really put it near a window where it can get its filtered direct light. So now what I did with this plant, because I do love it, is basically I'm going to do a water propagation, which I've already done. Now a few weeks ago, because I fell in love with this plant, is I did a water propagation, and this is the result of it. All these little bits that you see here is where the roots actually come from, these little spots. But look at that rooting. Now this rooting must be about a month old in this one, and then I got encouraged and I put this one in the water. But that is quite common to have this sort of white little spots on the leaf, and that's where the rooting will actually suddenly pop out. So all you need to do with a water propagation is actually take your plant and ensure that the node, which is this bit here, where the leaves actually come from, is submerged in water, as in here. So the node is here, we have another node here, and that is where the rooting will take place. And in this case here, as you see, a leaf is forming, and even down here, forming in the water. So this is my blue spur. Now I simply take these two, because I've done my water propagation, and I could actually pot it, and I'll do it right now. So what I'm going to do is actually go in here and actually make my hole. The soil is moist, and I'm just going to simply put it in, just like that. And then I'm going to turn it around and put the other one here. And once I get more rooting, once it does settle here, I will move it into a bigger pot. And then what I'll do is into a bigger pot and look after it. And as it matures, I can put it in another bigger pot. And then what I'll do eventually is actually grow it in my garden, because I really want those flowers, but I'll grow it somewhere here. Now, the thing about this plant, because it does get quite big, is actually the best place is to put it further away, maybe against on your fence or your borders. So even sitting from this angle, all you see is these lovely blue spurs, because it does get quite wide, it does get quite tall. So a bit in a distance, so you can actually enjoy the beauty of the plant. So that is my soil propagation. So what we've done, we started off with a water propagation where we saw rooting. And now what I've done with the rooting, I'm putting it in soil so that in the end it actually matures and settles in soil, which will be later transferred to my garden. Now with the stem propagation, what I've done is I've already cut the stem. I did that yesterday evening. And basically what I did is I have my nodes here. I have another node here. And I have a node here and a node there. So what I'm going to just simply do is actually make sure my node is actually in the soil, like this. There's my node. Ensure that it's submerged in the soil, and submerge it in the soil. And my node is here. I'm just going to cut this one here. My node is here, and I'm going to submerge it in the soil. So that is a soil propagation, making sure that your nodes are all submerged in soil. And this is moist soil, which I actually watered last night, so it's not soggy, it's just moist. With this, I will put it in an area that it does get indirect light. I do a lot of propagation in my kitchen. And then once it does take off and I start getting leaves coming from the side, is basically, and see that the rooting has worked, is I will move each individual into bigger pots, and then from there I'll decide where I'm going to plant it. The beauty about this plant is that it does grow, it does root very fast. So hopefully I will get rooting very quickly. So that's my soil propagation of the plant. Now the other way you can actually propagate is, yesterday I was down there, the driveway, is they have runners. Now with these runners is that basically you have the shrub, and underneath the runners actually pop out at the side, and you can use those runners like this one and propagate it. So what I'm going to do here is, the runner node is there. I think I'm just going to snip it like that. And I'm not really bothered whether we have leaves to keep it going, because it will take off, and I'm so sure for that. So with this runner, I am going to just simply submerge it in the soil, just like that. and cover it. And then we wait for it to actually get rooting. Again, as I mentioned, in direct sun, in a warm area, moist soil, and then your propagation, you wait for it to start rooting. Once it has rooted, you move it into pots. So let me say something about this plant. Basically, it is native to Africa and it does grow in most African countries. And then, as I mentioned before, they do call it the toilet paper plant. Now, basically, what happens like in Kenya is most of the people, like all of us who live in the city, we all have our rural home where we go and visit. It could be a little farm, maybe your relatives are there. And basically, like Christmas time, everyone goes home to their rural areas. Now, the thing is that this plant has been known to be called the toilet paper plant because in the rural areas where basically people, toilet paper is expensive in Kenya, is a lot of people do grow this blue spur and use it as toilet paper. I've just pulled out all these leaves and just if I feel the texture, it is very soft and it is not an aggressive leaf where you have spikes. But basically it comes in all shapes, sizes, and so a lot of people, like for example in the rural areas, I would plant it maybe next to a pet latrine, for example, so that in the end you do have your toilet paper at hand. It is a very interesting plant, and basically that is the other function of this particular beautiful blue spur. So do get yourself one of these plants and also gift it to people. Because even for campers and people who love to be outdoor, once you do see this plant, is that basically, and you don't have your loo roll, you can just go and get a few leaves and basically you've sorted yourself out. So, fellow gardeners, I hope I've given you a good tip. I thought I should mention that because it is indigenous to Africa and it is used as a toilet paper plant. And don't forget to like, share and press that notification button. And don't forget we are on Instagram, Facebook and do send me your comments and do subscribe to my channel because it is very important to us. Do send me comments. I always do answer. And if you do have any queries, do ask me and I always try to help you out. So fellow gardeners, don't forget to get yourself a plant. It is a very useful plant. It's beautiful, lovely flowers, but it is very functional. And I think that's great to know. Bye.